Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. Well, I know we're in December. Why did that happen? Oh my goodness. December. And we have our awesome co-host, Tracy McBurney. Now, last month, we did something about the light of the heart. And it seems that we're going to start a little bit again and just kind of maybe, well, let's just say it has progressed. It may continue to progress each month as we go. But I think it's a great place to start again and to share some of the stuff that keeps happening because it's, I don't know, it's fascinating. Anyway, welcome to the show, Tracy.
Yeah, so I'm kind of still in a little bit of whatever this is. So I have my water, which is I don't have a lot of it. Okay, so I was just sharing a tiny bit of what has gone on before we even started the show. And my full intention was I was just going to go straight forward into more of the light within heart, more of the healing of the heart, more of the taking care of the heart, mercy to the heart, grace to the heart, thinking, let's have a discussion about that. And then I ended up in a private session for myself just before this call. And I'm like, oh, but it's very connected into where the light of my heart is taking me. In other words, the things that were clearing and being shown to me today were almost like separated from the light within heart. It was almost like light within heart showing me, hey, you're here. And the interesting insight today was you're here with your father, and you're here with your father's history, and you're here with your father's pain and your grandfather's pain. And that was a, my story would be, oh, my father and I don't share much except at Christmas time when I go buy the Christmas presents for mom, as he stopped buying her jewelry. And so now he needs help and so that's my story, is that was our relationship in my adult years. He passed away a couple of years ago. But I got a real interesting wake up call today to the concept that no, we shared this. We shared this way of operating, this way of seeing, this perspective, and this pain, like this way of operating because of the pain that was connected to it. And I just got a very big understanding of that's still shifting and moving. And so I will start today by thanking Light Within Heart though that's an answer to a prayer. That's an answer to me sitting with Light Within Heart, giving permission to that place for healing, for helping, for unveiling, for revealing. Like those are the kinds of things that I've just been saying. And that today is a little bit of the result. So I'm speaking a little bit in riddles. But yeah, today was profound. So it started with, I'll give her a kudos. It started with a lovely woman, Sophie Bedard, who was doing a session for me and several other people today. And it's the whole thing that she was putting together is something about truth. The whole deliverance was about truth. And she had today this, and I like it. She's always working with these questions, these big questions. And today it was the number one emotion distorting your relationship with truth, with the truth of yourself, with the truth of why you're here, with the truth of how you're perceiving things. Something's coming in as truth, but it's not really truth. It's curved and illusion and lies. And so just not even being able to see it or be able to discern it. So this has been a whole thing that she's been bringing forward. And today was just one of the days, and it was profound. So just to share with the people that are listening, what she brought forward today, which didn't surprise me. She brought forward for me the number one emotion today was one of despair. And then she says, connecting into a feeling of powerlessness with regard to truth, with regard to knowing truth, feeling powerless to stand in truth. She said it's in some way sickening my gut, wrapped around throat, interfering with expression of truth. I'm paraphrasing all of it because it was a lot. And she spent quite a lot of time describing what was going on with me. And I really felt like I was being deeply supported by her presence in being able to see this. And in fact, I'm just going to say this out loud because I'm now recognizing how supported I have been by the light within my heart, by my higher self, and by the fact that I shouldn't have even been in this class today because I hadn't signed up in time to be in this class today. And she sent a note to my email box saying, you missed the deadline for being able to be in the class tomorrow morning, but I'm extending the deadline. So please just get back to me by email to say that you're interested and you're going to be included in class. And I got to say, I was supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. Like my resistance to purchase it, my resistance to just think about it for another night, whatever it was like, I know yeah, sure, fine. Think about it for another night, but you're supposed to be in this class and this is supposed to be helped. And the light of your heart is pushing this forward because you keep asking and you keep opening the door. And so there's almost like this internal pressure to move things out and move things along. And, so, and as I said to you before the call, that felt right. It felt like these waves of really feeling that kind of despair, that kind of I would have called it depression. And then I'll pull myself out of that, use the techniques to pull myself out of that, bring myself back into a light place, bring myself into a good place, bring myself into a clear place. And then how long am I there before I'm back down into this other place? And to realize after doing the clearing that she had afforded today, to realize that despair, powerless place energetically had a connection to the parental line of my father. Mm. And you'd never think that, maybe you think that in the last year for my father, but you'd never think that for my father. He was a big, powerful presence that took up a whole bunch of space in the room. The world revolved around him, and it was people's pleasure to kind of serve him. He was a good person. But you'd never think the word despair, and you'd never think the word powerlessness in connection with him. But when all of this was clearing, and when all of this was being revealed to be seen, my father was holding on to a feeling. It was a grief feeling, a despair, grief feeling, loss of life. And it was the loss of life of a person in our family that I'd never met. Mm. And maybe if my dad met him, and I think my dad would have met him, my dad would have been very young when he died. And it was a tragic death. Mm. So my grandfather was the Air Vice Marshal in the Second World War. So lots of medals and lots of recognition. Good guy. In fact, he was the head chair in the Nuremberg trials. Mm. His younger brother followed in his footsteps to go into the Air Force and literally would say that out loud. I'm following in my big brother's footsteps. He's going into the Air Force. And he was doing training maneuvers in Trenton. And somebody didn't turn on some lights for some of the buildings and things. And he flew into one of the buildings and died. Jeez. And I think he was 24 at that time. Wow. So it was not an honorable death. It was a tragic death. And it had its reverberations in the family. And I found out about some of them very much later. I'm not even going to get into it in this story, but it seems to me that people hid that feeling of despair, kind of hid that grief and hid that feeling of despair. Like life has to go on and things have to go on and mouths need to get fed. And people need to be saved and, just things have to go on. And so that whole concept was part of our family, the duty, the obligation to something larger than yourself. And so my father had held this, and my grandfather had held this. And I saw that in my grandfather one day when he was in his 90s. I saw it just for a glimpse of time. I saw the pain of the remembrance of Harry. And he showed it to me. So here I am today, being brought into all of that. And the other piece that I shared with you before we got on this call was I was the child in our family that was not allowed into the hospitals for most of the time that my father was in the hospital dying or trying to survive with a kind of a heart surgery. And I got into Sunnybrook Hospital 5 days before he passed. And I was just one of the people that didn't choose to wake him up when I came into the room. I just didn't think that was very kind. So I was just sitting beside him in a chair, and I was just getting quiet, and I was joining into the still point, the 0 point. And I wanted to be with his higher self. I just wanted to sit with his higher self. And the immense amount of energy, like the big presence that I was connected with in that moment when I asked to be with his higher self, was something that I felt before when my father has walked into a room. Like I've actually felt the presence of that, almost like take all the oxygen in the room. It was so large. And I was just sitting with the energy of his higher self in the idea of how can I be of service? How can I help? What can I know? What can you tell me? Maybe I'm just going to be with you. Maybe I'm just going to sit with that part of my father. And it was all of it. It was any of it. It was just like, okay, I'm here. I'm here. And I got past a ball of energy. And it was like, this is for you. And so there's this ball of energy that's being passed to me, and I needed to agree to take the energy that was being delivered from my father's higher self. And I'm like, and I got a real sense, this is for you. You are the child that will be able to deal with this, handle this, honor this, do right by this. It was like this, so this is for you. And I thought about it afterwards, and I went, okay. And it just, I didn't quite know what it was, but it was coming right into my field. And then I got a sense of that this was my father's unhealed pain. He was giving me his unhealed pain, the things that he had not been able to resolve. And I was then taking that on, as well as whatever else I was taking on that my father was giving me energetically through that higher self connection. And I had to run all of this through a girlfriend of mine. I mean, there's not many people that you can have a conversation with that said, hey, I was sitting by my father's bedside, and he was kind of in a place of one of his last days here, and connecting to his higher self. And this is what I was given. And this ball of it. And who do you have a conversation like that with? So it feels today to say this emotion of despair, this emotion of powerlessness, this connection to all of this in our family history, the responsibility to this, the suffering and silence. It's funny, like I would point the finger at my mother and say, suffering and silence? That's my mother. That's my mother. In fact, there was a day when my mother said to me, she was angry at me that I had not suffered in silence with regard to the birth of my son. That I had not done the right thing, done the womanly thing to suffer in silence. Like, why would you tell your son that this was not, the best day of your life? Like, why would you be that honest? And so suffering in silence was a mother thing. It was a woman thing. Right. I'd never seen it as a father thing. until today. So my father didn't know that I already had that pain. Like I already had that grief, that pain, that feeling. In fact, it was kind of interesting, even from my birth. I was born at a time when my mother was losing the brightest light that she knew. It was her grandfather. And he was passing away, and he died the day after I was born. And she was grateful that she could tell him that I was a girl before he passed. And so I think that if you think of amniotic fluid and what's in it, like my amniotic fluid had sadness in it, and it had maybe grief in it, and it had suffering that my mother was going to be silent about. And I was swimming in that. And then that's August 30th. And then how many months later, we've got the death of Kennedy, 1963 in November. I'm already like, I've been swimming in the grief. I've been swimming in the sadness. And then I've got the Kennedy death, and I'm a thin-skinned child. I had to do a lot of releasing of the energetic that I took in from the death of Kennedy and what the world was delivering forward. So I thought about it today in the time frame between the healing, and there isn't even one because I'm still in it. Right. But I just thought, so you handed me this, Dad, but you didn't know that I shared it with you. So you handed me yours, but I already had yours. But thank you for maybe telling me this is my responsibility, to bring this forward, or letting me know that my father is asking that of me. Maybe God is asking me. To bring healing to this.
Just as you said that, something happened in your room and the light expanded. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always say, universe only flows in one direction. And it's always working to bring love and light and restore things to balance, even years later, hundreds of years later. And I don't know for certain, but I think that what I know is true is that my younger brother carries this same pain. Mm-hmm. And I guess my father would have witnessed my desire to heal things, my desire to stand as a force, which I was kind of standing as a force, my whole family walking one direction in the pandemic, me walking another. Mm. Standing in a force of what I felt to be right with regard to healing or helping, or, even if it stood against what some other people were thinking was a right choice. What I loved about my family was they let me stand where I was while they were all standing somewhere else.
Yes.
So maybe it's that, because that would have driven my dad crazy.
Right.
When I look at the despair and the powerlessness and some of what that connects to, the saving, the powerlessness to be able to save another, to save Harry from flying into that building, to not be able to see something coming before it hits. And my father was a very big seer. I think sometimes he would see so much it would drive him crazy, because he'd just be seeing so far into the future as the Aquarian energetic that he was. And it's like, just do what I tell you to do. Just do what I tell you to do.
Right.
Yeah. So did this despair, powerlessness, I'm not going to say guilt, but just this feeling irresponsible, or feeling like you didn't show up, that you didn't catch something or see something in time, whatever it was, the judgment of self.
Right.
That feels right. The judgment of self. The self-judgment that was there, fascinating, eh? The self-judgment that was there and being held before you were even out of the womb. But also the thing that inspires you. The thing that inspires you to be better, to do better, to see more, to see wider, to see farther. To save more. So I really got an interesting understanding today. This idea of saving another versus being with another. And recognizing that this guilt or this judgment of what didn't get saved was interfering with, it was distorting the truth. Am I here? Am I here to save people? Am I here to save the world? Am I here to save all the people? Or save all the people from all of these experiences? And am I here to do that? And it was a really, really interesting thing to have my higher self really come in to help me to get, the saving versus the being. How much do you let yourself just be with the people that you want to be with before you move into saving again, before you move into, but see this. But you need to see this.
I've been there. I kind of live there. Yep.
Yeah.
I try not to, but I do. Hard.
Yeah. And then I look at my mom, my son, who says to me one day, and this would have been quite a few years ago now, he was thinking about my mom, and we were she's still alive, by the way.
Yes.
And he's, I was talking about something, and he's in his late teens, maybe, at the time that we're talking. And he just tilts his head like a dog tilts their head, like in that wonderful way. And he just tilts his head to one direction. He just looks, and this soft voice just said, "She's perfect." And it just was there in the air. This idea, his perception that she's perfect. And of course, I break that not a minute later by saying, well, if you'd had a few of the time frames that I've had, maybe you wouldn't think of her as so perfect. But I'm really glad that you have had that experience with her. But when I thought about it afterwards, I went, oh, I think I know where that comes from. She doesn't break a time of being with somebody to get them to see something. Well, you need to see this. She just doesn't do it. She's just with them. And if you learn something by being in her presence that day, that's great.
Right.
Like if you learn how to add the pennies a little more because you've been in the closet with her playing Mrs. Mole and Mr. Something or other when you're 4, and you're playing with the cash register in the closet and you happen to now learn something about making change, that's great. But she's done it from a place of just being with you fully. And I recognize that this hidden grief, responsibility, upset, judgment has been interfering with me being more with the people that I want to be with. And maybe trusting that they have a higher self. They have guides.
Yeah.
And this, it just brings me back to the lessons at the beginning of the pandemic when I'm walking the dog and I hear one of my guides very nicely saying in my head, "You've become very good at staying in divine role with your clients. Exceptionally good. Now, while things are slowing down a bit, why don't we experiment with being in divine truth all the time? Being in divine role all the time." And I just kind of sat with the energy of that all the time. Really recognizing, yeah, you know what? I have a discipline. I have a discipline like a muscle. I have a discipline to be in that divine role place. I don't want to have a session with somebody unless I have a divine role, unless there's a divine role for me and that I can be in that. And I'm adamant about it. But this is interesting to introduce the concept on a dog walk at the beginning of the pandemic, that now we're going to introduce the concept of being in divine role always. And then the guidance pops up to say, just to let you know, you're going to fail at this more than you're going to succeed at this. So we're just letting you know that. And of course, I'm listening to this voice that's coming into my head. I'm going, great. So we're doing this assignment
that I'm
during a time frame where I'm not making the amount of money that I was making. So we're going to do this assignment. And you're telling me with whatever the stress is over here, that now you're telling me I'm going to be failing at this more than I'm going to succeed. And then I'm just sitting, so I'm half smiling. My husband's like about half a block ahead of me while I'm just having this discussion with myself. And then I'm just starting to chuckle. Now, I think I can say this out loud. I hope so. You have to keep it if I can. But this is exactly what I said to myself. What the fuck? Like, what? All right, let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's just see how this goes. Can we just maybe experiment with this for a couple of weeks and we just do a recheck? But I remember the very first thing I said as I'm kind of smiling to myself, like rolling my eyes going, okay, well, what the fuck? We'll just do it. We'll just do it and see what happens. See how I deal with the failure. See how I deal with all of it. Right. It was very interesting to see over the next couple of weeks as I just observed things, how much I stayed silent. And it wasn't a feeling repressed. It wasn't feeling pushed down. It was just, if I'm in divine role, I'm just there with my presence, not really speaking, not really saying anything, letting somebody else talk, like my divine role to let somebody else talk. Maybe somebody who doesn't have anybody to talk to at home. Maybe somebody like I have my husband to talk to. We talk all the time during that time frame when we didn't have anybody else to talk to really except each other, or unless we're making a phone call, but we had each other. in face-to-face conversations. And maybe that's why my divine role was to be one, just to be in silence and to not really speak a lot. It was also interesting to recognize at that time that the things that hijacked me out of divine role was injustice. If I got a sniff of injustice over those first 6 months or 7 months of doing that exercise, that's it. I was off. I got to fix this. I got to fix this. I got to write a letter. I got to do this. And it was just like, and a week and a half after that, when I'm under that spell, I was kind of waking up exhausted, and I'm going, what the heck? And I'm going, okay, well, I'm in divine role right now.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was all very interesting. Mm-hmm. So my propensity to save the world, to save people. Yeah. And I'm sure that if I look back, my father's propensity to want to try and save me from my unvaccinated choice, or, whatever it was. But I think by that time he was feeling so not well that I think he was just more in the feeling of despair and powerlessness in maybe the last year of his life. Like more just being one with all of that buried stuff. So anyway, that's my story for today.
I think a lot of us can relate to it, maybe not specifically in the same way that you went through it, but I certainly understand the whole savior thing. And it makes relationships really difficult when you're in that mode. It's much better just to be. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was interesting to recognize how challenging that was just to be.
Yeah. Very challenging.
Yeah. And how much I think my son appreciates the people that are just being with him.
Right.
Like, without judging him, yeah, it's fascinating.
Mm.
So that sentence, the number one emotion distorting your relationship with truth. So I got a yes to that. For you. I got a yes to that. Yeah, I got a yes to that.
No way.
Oh yeah, but I think it's true I think that it's true for everyone. I think this is a really, really powerful question for everyone.
Yeah. Very.
Because I think if we were all really clear about the truth of who we are, the truth of us as light beings, if we were really clear about that, we're really clear about the truth of how to serve or not to serve, if we were really clear about the truth of all of that, I just think this would be a very different world.
Mm.
If our chakras were bringing in truth, not through some distorted way that is part of unhealed mess, then I just think things would be very different.
Yeah.
I do think this is a relevant question to everybody. So when she was working to help people today, there was fear, apprehension as an emotion distorting. There was guilt, self-blame, the action of self-blame coming from the emotion of guilt. For me, it was the action of powerlessness. It's interesting that is an action. The action or inaction, but the action of powerlessness in connection to despair.
That's me.
A despair that you can't change, a despair that, how do you change a despair that's been created by the tragic death of somebody that was so loved by everybody that ever met him? How do you change the despair? How do you even want the despair to be changed?
Yeah.
Because the love that people had apparently for Harry was just, I never met him.
Right.
But the love that people had for this boy, he made a huge impression on people.
Yeah.
Because of what he was emanating out of himself, just by being him. And apparently really kind. So it is peace. Like, how do you even want to do anything about that?
Of
How do you
tragedy.
even feel you can do anything about that? Like the powerlessness to do anything about that, the lack of will to do anything about that. It brings up the beautiful Callahan, Richard Callahan, his beautiful reversal states. I didn't even know who to credit for the longest time for those reversal states. Willing, wanting, ready, able, deserving, benefit, safe. Is it safe for me to do this? Is it going to benefit me? Is it going to benefit others? Am I going to lose my identity if I do this? Am I going to look right? So his reversal states were profound. That would have been very connected into that despair. No, I am not willing to touch this. No, I am not wanting to touch this. I'm not able to touch this. It's not for me to touch. It's almost like the loss of God, like it's the loss of a God energy here, like a light being energy here. It's not for me to touch. It's just for me to suffer in.
Yeah. Right.
Till I got that understanding today. That divinity, light within heart wants this touched.
Right.
Wants this moved. Because it's interfering. It was interfering. It was wrapping my father up in certain ways. It was wrapping my grandfather up in certain ways. Maybe closing their hearts or interfering with how their hearts could actually work, their throats could actually work. So, yeah. And so the God energy, the divinity within us wanted this change, didn't want this grief held on to, this despair coming from the grief and coming from the loss of that love, that God's love, that presence of God's love on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So then I say, okay, light within heart. If this is desired from this place, I say yes. I say yes. You can take care of it. Or you found Sophie Bedard to take care of it. And the elementals of earth and fire and air and water to help take care of it. She mentioned shame, and then she brought forward embarrassment for one of the people that she was working with today. The feeling of embarrassment, there really is an internalized way of shame. And it's interesting to link those two. So then you'd say to yourself, connecting to your higher self, desiring to connect to your higher self, what is the emotion? What is the number one emotion distorting my relationship with truth? What's the number one emotion that you want me to see, that you want me to recognize, that you're handing me on a silver platter today? What's the number one emotion?
Mine comes up as anger, but there's something about justice in there too. Yeah, there's something about whenever something goes off, I just feel so angry. Like when something's not going the way it's supposed to, or not, feel so egoish, but it's like when something's just not happening that I feel it should happen the way it's supposed to, or like when somebody's not feeling their own empowerment, but there's something about when I feel disempowered, or I just go off. As soon as I feel that disempowerment or that injustice, it just makes me very angry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's anger.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
It stops me from seeing the truth, for sure.
Yeah. Now, I think the truth, the higher, if we fly above all of this, the truth is it's all divine. It's all divine. The way it's landed, exactly the way it's landed, it's all divine.
And when I can take that breath, or I can get to that 0 point, then I know that that's the truth. But at the time, I just can't.
Right.
Like if it just takes over.
Yeah. Right. Because it's anger, and then it feels almost like because it didn't happen the way it was supposed to happen. It didn't happen the way it should have happened. It didn't happen. The injustice of that it didn't happen the way it should have happened, the way it was earmarked to happen. It's like the injustice of that. And so it feels like, well, anger is a masking emotion.
Exactly.
So underneath anger is always fear.
Yes.
And then whatever, hurt and whatever else is going on. But it almost feels like anger, and then the feeling because it didn't show up the way I needed it to show up, the way it should have showed up. It's like there's this feeling of unsafe.
Yes.
There's this feeling of uncertain. There's this feeling of
powerlessness.
Sorry?
Powerlessness.
Yeah, okay.
I just feel like I have no choice. Like it's like everything's been taken away from me, and I have to fight to get it back. And even though I know that, everything's always divine and that it's meant to happen this way, and I'm supposed to learn something from this, in the moment, blah.
Yeah. So what if this goes back to your mother and adopted?
Yeah.
What if it goes back farther than that?
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of explains a little bit of the unsafe and insecure and uncertain and not okayness. I love that not okayness. I don't even know if that's in the dictionary, not okayness. It's been spiraling in my world for the last year.
Okay.
It's like, well, that's not okay. You're not okay. You're not okay. That's not okay. And it's like, okay, but let's just come into your own not okayness.
Mm.
And why is this not okay with you? That this mother has chosen to adopt you out. Why is that not okay with you?
Are you asking?
Just be with that for a second. Right?
Yeah.
Like be with that energy. Just come into heart. Come into heart, because this isn't about light of heart. This is about pain within heart, pain within the body. Why was that not okay with you?
Okay. Well, first thing I didn't feel safe. Where am I going to go now?
Right.
What's going to happen to me now? Nobody cares.
So
if my mother doesn't want me, who would possibly want me?
Feel that statement for a second. Nobody cares.
Right.
Just feel that statement. First of all, I want you to feel the truth of my name is Laurie. Just say, my name is Laurie.
My name is Laurie.
And what does that see like? And what does that feel like through your body? Because that's truth. What does that feel like? What does that see like? You got that?
Mm-hmm.
Now say, my name is Stella.
Okay. My name is Stella.
Feel that, see that, because you might be a seer person. And can you feel the difference between the lie and the truth?
Yeah.
And you see it, like maybe you're a seeing person.
No, feeling, but yes.
Okay, so you're very clear what truth is, and you're very clear what the lie is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I want you to say that statement, nobody cares.
Yeah, I already know. But yes, nobody cares.
Okay, it's truth or lie?
Truth. It's a lie.
Would you allow that to be lifted into the light now?
Please.
Because you made that up. So let's make space, because that's a made up statement. So we're just allowing that to be lifted into the light. Our brain, at the temporal level of our brain, likes to make meanings sometimes, needs to make meanings, needs to put things in folders, but that doesn't mean it's the truth. So it makes the situation more problematic because we're not sitting in truth. And now we've just put more lies in the mix, and maybe in the blood. And so I get the unsafe. Why is that not okay? Because I feel so unsafe.
Yeah.
Maybe even I feel so destabilized, although, but it's like I feel so unsafe. Would you like some help with that? Would you like some help from your light within heart for that?
Yes, I would.
Or what I might also call a divine hug. That you allow yourself to be divinely hugged, the you that just came to realize the not safe. It's not okay because I feel so unsafe. This is not a safe choice for me. She hasn't made that safe for me. She didn't make that safe for me. She wanted something for me, but she didn't make it safe for me. So now maybe the question would be, could you forgive her? Could you forgive her for not knowing how to make that safer for you? She wanted a better life for you.
She didn't feel safe, so she didn't know what to do. Yeah. I can forgive her.
So this is kind of nice to sit in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can do more. We can do more.
Oh, yeah.
Because what your little you didn't know or have any awareness of at that time was the light within heart. The little you didn't have any awareness of the light within itself. Or what if it did? What if it did? What if I'm making up stories? What if it did? What if the little you did have awareness of the light within yourself? And then went, what have you done, Mom? What have you done? What have you done? You totally screwed this up for me. And now I feel so unsafe.
I was so angry.
Maybe. And how's anything going to work out now? And now nothing's going to work out the way it was supposed to work out. Now nothing's going to work out the way it was supposed to work out.
Although I did get a great father for 13 years, so it did work out. Just hard.
Yeah, but maybe not the life that you really had envisioned.
Right.
And so what do you repeat over and over again?
The unsafety, the anger.
Things are not working out the way they're supposed to work out. They're not working right, and it keeps sparking up the anger.
Right.
And you keep being reminded of this pain. So what if that little child was wrong? What if life worked out just the way it was supposed to work out? You born to one mother and then adopted out to another mother and then interfered with and sabotaged by this pain and this anger and this judgment and this not being able to see clearly for as many years as you're going to be distorted by that.
Right.
And does all of that protect your light?
No.
Well, maybe it does a little bit of a way.
Yeah, maybe.
Hide it. Block it and then not block it.
Mm-hmm.
What I always say about judgment is we're never clear when we're in it.
Whether we're judging ourselves or judging somebody else. Exactly.
Never clear enough. We're never seeing high enough or wide enough.
Mm-hmm.
So what if that might be true for the little you, the tiny little you that recognized your light, but was still in this place of judgment? And could you allow that little you to be lifted higher? Clearings maybe happening at a third eye level or whatever would be needed so that that little you could see wider and higher. To really recognize and internalize that divinity is with me. God is with me.
I can feel that.
And what you're starting to recognize is that little infant now, because the opportunity has been given to the little infant within you to then emanate out right up until present time and all the way into the future self of you. But you also recognize that feeling of unsafe was one that connected in with your mother, that she couldn't deliver you more of a feeling of safe because she didn't feel that within herself.
I wasn't even delivered safely. Just, right? I was premature because there was urine in the uterus or something. I don't know I don't know what any of that stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting to have this idea of nobody caring about me when all of these people had stepped in to care for you, to deliver you from her to the world.
I need to sit with this for a bit. But yes. Wow.
Yeah, to sit with maybe the who is there forgiveness here? Me for myself to myself, me to something else. Gratitude. Is there gratitude that I have not been receiving into me? That could be received now as these things are clearing and moving? Is there gratitude that I can give out to another? letting your higher self take care of the giving and receiving of forgiveness, letting your higher self take care of the giving and receiving of gratitude. I am here. I am here.
I'm here.
Thank you to my mother for having me.
Yes. Thank you.
And wherever she is in the world, or having been released from the world,
Definitely.
and maybe what you'd also like is that she would have a sense of safety restored to her by a recognition of that divine, that divinity operating within her. This world showed up for you, and all of the circumstances that have happened, that have been repeating over and over again, showed up to continue to show you this, to continue to show you where that little infant got stuck, where that little infant went sideways, where that little infant still needs some help, some healing, some sorting, some realigning. So divinely perfect, all of it in its imperfection, and all operating that way for you.
Well, well, this is a good healing for a lot of people. I'm sure I am not the only person that has safety.
I love you for this, Laurie. I love you. I think, and you're going to be on a whirlwind for the next couple hours, I'm sure. Yeah. Really, it's profound, actually.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Okay. Well. Oh, thank you, Tracy, again.
Yeah. Letting light within heart take care of this.
Yes. Yes.
And take care of delivering to you, into you, all of the frequencies of love and light and new information and knowings that can be delivered in, now that all of this has been moved and cleared and unwrapped and unwound and revisited.
Okay. Wow. All right. Without having me to do too much more editing. You have been listening to News of the Heart. We've been getting to the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney. And wow, this is a healing gift. Healing gift for many. Thank you, Tracy. We'll be back. We'll be back in the new year. Oh my goodness. That's so crazy. When did this happen? Anyway, thank you. And yeah, we'll be back.